You're listening to the Bare Metal Cyber Prepcast, created to help you succeed in your educational journey. Learn more at baremetalcyber.com, where additional prepcasts, books, and training materials await. Let's get started. Awareness of Agile values and principles is not achieved by hanging posters on walls or distributing slide decks. It is built through a persistent, audience-tuned program that translates abstract ideas into everyday language, stories, and trade-offs. The orientation here is to create shared understanding that drives behavior, not slogans that decorate spaces. Agile values like collaboration, adaptability, and delivering working solutions quickly can sound aspirational, but without translation into the choices teams actually face, they risk becoming hollow. Awareness efforts must connect principles to daily dilemmas, making them practical and trustworthy. This requires tailoring messages to different groups, embedding them in onboarding and working agreements, and reinforcing them through role modeling and peer networks. Over time, awareness transforms principles from vague concepts into active guides for judgment under pressure. It replaces ritual compliance with principle-driven decision-making, enabling teams to act consistently in alignment with Agile intent. The objectives of an awareness program must go beyond mere familiarity. The desired shift is from process compliance, where teams follow prescribed steps mechanically, to principle-driven judgment, where decisions are grounded in intent rather than ritual. For example, instead of attending stand-ups because they are mandated, teams understand the purpose rapid synchronization and obstacle surfacing and adapt format accordingly. Awareness programs should target behaviors that demonstrably change outcomes, such as raising issues early, slicing work thinly, or validating assumptions with users. These objectives focus on decision quality, collaboration depth, and trust building, not on rote use of terminology. By clarifying these aims, organizations avoid confusing awareness with indoctrination. The goal is not to memorize words, but to embody values in action. When awareness drives judgment rather than compliance, Agile principles become resilient guides, adaptable to context while preserving integrity. Audience segmentation ensures that messages resonate with different groups rather than assuming one size fits all. Leaders must see how Agile values influence governance, risk management, and cultural tone. Product roles need examples of balancing scope, discovery, and stakeholder expectations. Engineers benefit from stories of how principles affect quality practices, flow, and operability. Designers require scenarios where user empathy and iterative learning improve outcomes. Risk and compliance partners need to see how principles coexist with guardrails, ensuring fairness, safety, and accountability. Each audience routinely faces different trade-offs, and awareness messages must speak to their world. For example, telling engineers embrace change without acknowledging dependency risks feels shallow, while showing them how early integration reduces rework feels credible. By tuning messages to each group's perspective, awareness efforts build trust and avoid alienation. Segmentation is empathy and communication meeting people where they are to move them toward shared understanding. A message map links core values to practical dilemmas, demonstrating how principles guide real decisions under pressure. For example, the tension between quality and speed is reframed. Agile principles favor delivering quickly, but with built-in quality practices that prevent costly rework. Scope versus learning is another recurring dilemma. Do we commit to a fixed feature set or leave room to discover what users truly need? Awareness programs connect these dilemmas directly to values like responding to change and customer collaboration. By showing how principles resolve tensions, teams see that values are not abstract. They are tools for navigating real-world trade-offs. Message maps provide consistency, ensuring that awareness content aligns across communications, training, and leadership examples. They also reduce confusion, as people can trace back decisions to the values that shape them. This alignment ensures that awareness is not about memorizing values, but about applying them thoughtfully to recurring challenges. Shared vocabulary normalizes meaning across teams, reducing semantic drift that leads to avoidable conflict. Terms like value, flow, readiness, and done can vary widely in interpretation. Without agreement, discussions stall in arguments over definitions rather than focusing on outcomes. For example, one team's done may mean code complete, while another's includes testing, documentation, and monitoring. Awareness programs standardize definitions in plain, everyday language linked to artifacts and agreements. This does not mean enforcing rigid jargon, but creating clarity that supports collaboration. Shared vocabulary also accelerates onboarding, as new members adopt common language quickly rather than piecing together inconsistent interpretations. By anchoring principles in well-understood terms, awareness efforts reduce friction and align expectations. Over time, this vocabulary becomes part of organizational culture, enabling smoother communication and reinforcing trust that when someone says ready, everyone knows what it means. Narrative anchors make Agile intent concrete through short, relatable stories. Principles resonate most when illustrated with scenarios that show cause and effect. For example, a story about a team that postponed user feedback until late in the cycle only to discover major misalignment highlights the value of early collaboration. Another narrative might show how thin slicing reduced integration risk and delivered benefits sooner. These stories require no visuals. They are crafted for oral or written sharing, making them portable across formats and contexts. Narrative anchors also humanize principles, showing how they prevent harm or create benefit in lived situations. By embedding them in awareness programs, organizations shift understanding from theory to practice. Stories linger longer than slogans, becoming reference points in discussions. When faced with dilemmas, teams recall the narratives, using them as mental models for principle-driven decisions. Storytelling makes principles accessible, memorable, and actionable. Myth-busting is necessary because Agile adoption often comes with misconceptions that distort practice. Awareness programs explicitly address these myths, offering clear, principle-aligned corrections. Common examples include, Agile means no planning, or velocity is a performance score. In reality, Agile embraces planning but treats it as adaptive, and velocity is a team-level signal, not an individual metric. By tackling these misconceptions directly, awareness efforts prevent harmful behaviors, such as abandoning strategy or weaponizing metrics. Myth-busting also builds credibility, as teams see that programs are not ignoring common frustrations but addressing them candidly. Each myth is paired with a principle-based truth, showing how the correct understanding improves outcomes. Over time, myth-busting reduces cynicism and strengthens trust, as people realize that Agile awareness is about substance, not slogans. Clear, repeated correction ensures that misconceptions do not calcify into rituals or excuses that undermine value. Ethics and responsibility alignment reinforces that principles coexist with fairness, privacy, safety, and sustainability. Awareness programs show that agility is not speed at any cost. For example, rapid delivery must respect accessibility standards and data privacy, and adaptation must never override user safety. By framing ethics as non-negotiable guardrails, awareness ensures that principles are applied responsibly. This also reassures risk and compliance partners, who may otherwise view agility as reckless. Ethical framing integrates principles into broader organizational commitments, showing that Agile values enhance accountability rather than erode it. For example, prioritizing working software includes making it safe and fair, not just functional. Awareness efforts that emphasize ethics prevent principles from being misapplied as justifications for shortcuts. Over time, this alignment builds trust with both internal and external stakeholders, proving that agility strengthens integrity rather than compromising it. Role modeling by leaders demonstrates awareness in action. When leaders explain their reasoning in terms of principles, express gratitude for dissent, and revisit decisions when evidence changes, they show that values are not abstract. For example, A leader might explain that a pivot was made because responding to change is a principle, and user data demanded adjustment. Public reasoning normalizes transparency and teaches teams how to weigh trade-offs. Gratitude for dissent shows that psychological safety is real, not theoretical. Revisiting decisions demonstrates humility and adaptability, modeling continuous learning. These behaviors are more powerful than presentations because they embody values visibly. Awareness programs highlight and amplify these examples, reinforcing that leaders live by the principles they espouse. Role modeling makes awareness contagious, proving that principles are not posters but everyday behaviors that shape judgment and outcomes. Onboarding modules embed Agile awareness early, connecting values and principles to working agreements, definition of done, and decision records. Without this integration, newcomers may adopt rituals without understanding their purpose. For example, training might show how the value of collaboration informs definition of done by requiring peer reviews and shared ownership. By linking principles directly to artifacts, onboarding accelerates comprehension and adoption. Modules also establish expectations, signaling that principle alignment is part of the role. Early exposure prevents misconceptions from taking root and ensures that new members contribute to consistent culture. By embedding awareness into onboarding, organizations make principles foundational, not optional extras. Over time, this practice builds resilience. As culture renews itself with each hire, awareness becomes generational, sustaining consistency even as membership evolves. Ambassador networks extend awareness peer-to-peer. Champions across teams localize messages, share stories, and route questions, ensuring that principles are reinforced outside of formal sessions. Ambassadors create trust by translating awareness into team-specific language and context. For example, a design ambassador may share stories of how principles guided user testing, while an engineering ambassador emphasizes flow and quality practices. Networks also surface questions and challenges back to central facilitators, keeping awareness adaptive. By distributing responsibility, ambassador networks prevent awareness from being top-down or episodic. They embed principles in daily conversations, making awareness a living dialogue rather than an initiative. Over time, networks build resilience, ensuring that awareness survives leadership changes or shifting priorities. Peer-to-peer reinforcement strengthens adoption, as principles are modeled by trusted colleagues rather than imposed from above. FAQ and primer libraries provide concise, plain-language references that support everyday decisions. Instead of relying on ad hoc interpretation, teams can consult resources that explain principles in practical terms. For example, a primer might address, how do we handle changing requirements mid-sprint, with principle-aligned guidance. FAQs also tackle recurring questions, reducing confusion and saving time. By curating these resources, organizations create self-service awareness tools that supplement training and dialogue. Libraries also ensure consistency, as explanations align with agreed definitions and message maps. Over time, these artifacts become part of organizational memory, reducing reliance on oral transmission alone. They provide quick reinforcement at the moment of need, embedding principles into daily practice. Accessible, practical references ensure that awareness is not confined to workshops, but woven into the flow of work. Channel strategy ensures that awareness messages are delivered through the right mediums for the right contexts. Written updates provide durable references. Audio explainers make content portable, and live dialogues create space for questions and nuance. For example, principle spotlights may be shared as short written posts, while myth-busting sessions may use live Q and AMP-A. Matching channel richness to topic complexity ensures efficiency and engagement. Channel variety also reaches diverse audiences. Distributed teams may prefer asynchronous formats, while co-located teams benefit from dialogue. By blending formats, organizations maximize reach and reinforce consistency. Over time, a well-designed channel strategy ensures that principles remain visible and relevant, not lost in noise. This deliberate mix keeps awareness alive, fresh, and adaptive to different work styles and schedules, embedding principles consistently across the organization. Measurement and signals verify that awareness is changing behavior, not just raising familiarity. Metrics include comprehension surveys, participation equity in dialogues, and decision quality indicators such as reduced ritual compliance or earlier risk surfacing. For example, tracking whether decision logs reference principles shows whether awareness is influencing real trade-offs. Participation equity reveals whether diverse voices are engaged, reinforcing inclusion. These signals turn awareness into an accountable program, proving ROI to leadership and participants alike. Measurement also identifies gaps, guiding future content. By treating awareness as measurable, organizations prevent it from drifting into symbolic activity. Over time, these metrics demonstrate tangible impact, better collaboration, more resilient delivery, and improved trust. Awareness succeeds not when people can recite values, but when those values visibly shape outcomes. Measurement ensures that principles are lived, not laminated. Anti-dogma guardrails prevent awareness from hardening into ritualism. Agile principles emphasize adaptability, but awareness programs risk turning them into rigid rules. For example, insisting that every team use the same ceremony format regardless of context undermines agility. Guardrails emphasize principles over rituals, encouraging tailoring while preserving intent. Awareness facilitators remind teams that values are guides, not commandments. They highlight that the goal is better decisions, not compliance with form. Over time, anti-dogma guardrails preserve agility's flexibility, ensuring awareness nurtures context-sensitive judgment rather than conformity. They protect culture from drifting into bureaucracy, reinforcing that awareness is about outcomes, not optics. This balance keeps principles credible, showing that they are tools for thinking, not constraints on adaptation. Anti-dogma is itself a principle. Resist turning awareness into orthodoxy so that agility remains alive and practical. For more cyber-related content and books, please check out cyberauthor.me. Also, there are other prepcasts on cybersecurity and more at baremetalcyber.com. Communication cadence keeps principles fresh and actionable, rather than fading into background noise. A predictable rhythm of updates builds trust and expectation. For example, weekly principle spotlights may highlight how responding to change influenced a recent decision, while monthly story highlights showcase wins or near misses where Agile values guided outcomes. Quarterly forums can preview upcoming decisions, allowing stakeholders to rehearse principle-driven reasoning together. This layered cadence ensures that awareness is reinforced at multiple levels: small reminders for daily reinforcement, deeper narratives for cultural embedding, and forward-looking sessions for anticipation. Predictability reduces fatigue by setting expectations rather than spamming channels unpredictably. Over time, this rhythm normalizes principles as part of organizational conversation. Instead of being revisited only during training or crises, they become part of ongoing dialogue, making Agile awareness an ambient presence that steadily shapes culture and choices. Decision logs referencing principles explicitly turn abstract awareness into visible practice. Logs record the context, trade-offs, and rationale behind decisions, making them traceable. By linking choices directly to values, such as prioritizing customer collaboration over contract rigidity, teams reinforce awareness in real time. For example, a log might state, "We chose to release early with partial functionality because delivering working software now provides feedback faster, consistent with our principle of customer collaboration." This makes awareness tangible, showing how principles guide decisions under real constraints. Logs also provide teaching material for future teams, turning one decision into an artifact of cultural learning. By embedding principles into logs, awareness is tied to outcomes, not posters. Over time, this habit ensures that Agile values are not aspirational statements, but lived criteria for judging decisions. Awareness matures into alignment as principles guide and explain choices visibly across the organization. Practice alignment maps ceremonies and artifacts back to their purpose, ensuring they serve principles rather than becoming rituals. For example, daily stand-ups exist to surface blockers and synchronize flow, not to satisfy compliance. Retrospectives are meant to foster reflection and adaptation, not to check a process box. Awareness programs remind teams of these whys, enabling them to right-size or adapt ceremonies without losing their benefit. This approach empowers teams to innovate responsibly, tailoring practices to their context while preserving principle-aligned outcomes. Mapping practices back to principles also reduces cynicism, as people see that ceremonies exist for real value, not ritual. Over time, this alignment prevents drift into dogma, where teams follow scripts without understanding. Instead, teams use practices as tools, guided by intent. Awareness efforts that focus on the why make ceremonies meaningful again, restoring energy and trust in agile rhythms. Story collection pipelines create a reusable bank of teaching moments. Teams are invited to submit short examples of wins, near misses, or reversals where Agile principles influenced outcomes. For instance, a near miss where a team caught a defect early because of continuous integration becomes a story reinforcing the principle of technical excellence. A reversal where late scope changes were embraced, leading to user satisfaction, showcases responsiveness to change. Pipelines curate and distribute these stories, ensuring they reach broad audiences. Stories are tagged by principle, making them easy to reuse in training, onboarding, or communications. This system turns isolated experiences into shared wisdom, compounding cultural reinforcement. Over time, the story bank becomes a living narrative of how principles manifest in daily work, proving their relevance. Story pipelines sustain awareness by grounding it in real, relatable examples rather than abstract ideals, making principles credible and memorable. Cross-function dialogues bring diverse groups together to rehearse principle-guided decisions before high-stakes situations arise. Product, engineering, and risk representatives collaborate in simulated scenarios where trade-offs must be made. For example, they might role-play deciding whether to delay release for security hardening or proceed to meet a customer deadline. By practicing in a safe environment, participants see how principles, such as valuing working software while ensuring safety balance outcomes. These rehearsals build empathy across roles and strengthen trust that Agile values are not biased toward one function. Cross-function dialogues also uncover tensions early, allowing organizations to refine guidance before crises. Over time, these dialogues create shared muscle memory, making real-time decisions smoother and more aligned. By embedding rehearsals, awareness becomes proactive preparation rather than reactive debate, ensuring principles are applied consistently under pressure, not just in theory. Localization ensures that Agile awareness is relevant across cultural and regulatory contexts. Principles remain consistent, but language, examples, and framing adapt to local realities. For example, a story about thin slicing in a European team might reference GDPR compliance, while in Asia it may highlight supply chain dynamics. Localization prevents principles from feeling foreign or imposed, making them resonate with the lived experience of teams. It also improves inclusivity, recognizing that cultural norms affect communication, conflict, and collaboration. Adapting language ensures comprehension, while contextual examples increase credibility. Localization balances fidelity to Agile intent with relevance to diverse environments. Over time, this practice strengthens adoption globally, ensuring principles are not seen as one region's philosophy, but as a universal framework adapted to local needs. Awareness programs that localize demonstrate respect and improve trust, embedding principles authentically across boundaries. Integration with hiring and performance embeds principles into formal organizational processes. Awareness is reinforced when job descriptions, interview prompts, and performance reviews reference Agile values explicitly. For example, interviews may ask candidates to describe how they balance quality with speed, linking responses to principles of technical excellence and responsiveness. Performance evaluations may recognize behaviors like surfacing risks early or collaborating across silos. Embedding principles this way ensures that awareness is not only cultural but structural, shaping who is brought in and how growth is measured. It also signals seriousness, showing that Agile values are not optional but core to success. Over time, this integration hardwires awareness into organizational systems, ensuring consistency. Employees see that principles shape expectations at every stage, from entry to advancement, reinforcing alignment and credibility. Awareness becomes part of how the organization defines and rewards professional excellence. Office hours and Ask Me Anything sessions create safe, routine spaces for dialogue about principles. These forums allow participants to test reasoning, clarify interpretations, and surface tensions without ceremony. For example, a team member may ask how to balance compliance reporting with delivering quickly, receiving guidance that ties back to principles of transparency and customer collaboration. Office hours normalize questions, reducing stigma around uncertainty. Ask Me Anything sessions with leaders demonstrate humility, as leaders openly address doubts and admit where interpretation evolves. By institutionalizing these spaces, awareness shifts from a one-way broadcast to a two-way dialogue. Over time, this strengthens trust and deepens understanding, as people see principles applied to their specific contexts. These sessions reinforce that Agile awareness is not about memorization, but about inquiry, reflection, and application, embedding values in conversation as much as in practice. Compliance-aware awareness bridges principles and governance by showing how auditability and agility reinforce each other. Instead of treating compliance as a blocker, awareness programs highlight how traceability, evidence, and approvals align with Agile values of transparency and accountability. For example, decision logs linked to principles also satisfy audit requirements, proving decisions were reasoned and documented. Retrospectives can double as compliance evidence when captured responsibly. By weaving compliance into awareness, organizations show that principles strengthen, not weaken, governance. This alignment reassures risk partners and regulators, reducing tension. It also improves culture, as teams no longer view compliance as antagonistic, but as complementary. Over time, compliance-aware awareness creates synergy. Agility and accountability work together, proving that fast, adaptive delivery can coexist with trustworthiness and integrity. Awareness becomes not only cultural reinforcement but also operational assurance. Remote-friendly practices ensure that awareness is inclusive for distributed teams. Recorded talks, searchable transcripts, and asynchronous Q and AMP-A make content accessible across time zones and work styles. For example, a principal spotlight may be shared as a 5-minute video with captions, supported by a discussion thread for questions. Transcripts make content searchable, turning awareness into a reference asset. Remote-friendly design prevents distributed contributors from feeling like second-class participants, ensuring equal access to awareness content. This inclusivity strengthens adoption across geographies and contexts. It also builds resilience, as awareness materials persist beyond live sessions, supporting onboarding and refreshers. By embedding remote practices, organizations demonstrate that principles are for everyone, regardless of location. Over time, remote-friendly awareness normalizes distributed inclusion, making Agile values a unifying force across global teams rather than a localized conversation. Feedback loops keep awareness adaptive by capturing questions, misalignments, and confusion, then updating primers, FAQs, and messages accordingly. For example, if multiple teams ask whether responding to change justifies skipping documentation, the FAQ is updated to clarify. Feedback loops ensure that awareness is not static but evolves with real-world practice. They also close the gap between communication and comprehension, reinforcing that awareness programs listen as much as they broadcast. This responsiveness strengthens trust, as people see their input reflected in materials. Feedback loops also prevent misconceptions from persisting, sustaining accuracy and relevance. Over time, feedback turns awareness into a conversation, not a campaign. It embeds continuous improvement into cultural reinforcement, proving that Agile values apply to awareness itself: inspect, adapt, and evolve. Recognition strengthens awareness by linking visible appreciation to principle-aligned behaviors. When individuals or teams surface risks early, slice work effectively, or provide honest status updates, recognition signals that these behaviors are valued. For example, a shout-out in a company update may highlight a team that reduced rework by testing assumptions early, tying back to the principle of customer collaboration. Recognition turns abstract values into tangible incentives, shaping culture by rewarding alignment. Over time, this practice reinforces awareness across the organization, as people see that living the principles brings appreciation and credibility. Recognition also balances incentives, ensuring that cultural reinforcement matches delivery outcomes. By embedding recognition into awareness, organizations ensure that principles are not only spoken but celebrated, strengthening both trust and motivation. Renewal checkpoints keep awareness content fresh and relevant. Quarterly reviews of metrics, narratives, and materials prune stale stories, update outdated FAQs, and focus on persistent misconceptions. For example, if velocity as a performance score continues to surface, content is refreshed to address it more directly. Renewal ensures that awareness does not stagnate, remaining alive and adaptive. It also reinforces accountability, as stewards regularly assess impact and refine approaches. By refreshing content, organizations prevent fatigue and cynicism, sustaining credibility. Renewal checkpoints also demonstrate that awareness is treated with the same rigor as delivery: inspected, adapted, and improved. Over time, this rhythm keeps principles visible, relevant, and trustworthy, embedding them sustainably into culture. Renewal turns awareness from a one-off campaign into a living discipline. Success definition ensures that awareness is judged by impact, not activity. Success is confirmed when decision quality improves, ritual compliance declines, and trust strengthens. For example, teams referencing principles in trade-offs, surfacing risks earlier, and tailoring practices responsibly demonstrate real success. Familiarity with terminology is insufficient. Principles must shape outcomes. Success is also cultural. Dissent is welcomed, decisions are transparent, and adaptability coexists with accountability. By defining success this way, organizations prevent awareness from becoming a vanity exercise. Instead, it becomes a measurable driver of resilience, speed, and trust. Over time, clear success criteria anchor awareness as an organizational capability, not a communication effort. Awareness achieves its purpose when values are lived, decisions improve, and culture strengthens outcomes that matter more than posters or slogans. Awareness synthesis emphasizes that socializing Agile values requires tuned messaging, lived examples, and explicit links to decisions. Principles are translated into audience-specific stories and dilemmas, reinforced by shared vocabulary, role modeling, and onboarding. Awareness is distributed through ambassadors, FAQs, and multiple channels, supported by measurement and feedback loops. Dogma is avoided, ethics are reinforced, and compliance is integrated, ensuring principles are applied responsibly. Remote practices, recognition, and renewal checkpoints sustain reach and relevance. Together, these practices transform values from abstract ideals into practical guides for judgment under pressure. Awareness becomes not a campaign but a discipline, embedding Agile intent into culture and behavior. Done well, it replaces ritual with principle-driven action, improving decision quality, building trust, and ensuring agility remains authentic, inclusive, and resilient. Thanks for tuning in to the Bare Metal Cyber Prepcast, your trusted source for cybersecurity news and insights. Remember to subscribe at baremetalcyber.com so you never miss an update. And visit cyberauthor.me for best-selling cybersecurity books that equip you with expert knowledge. Until next time, stay secure and stay vigilant.